So it's late November, and hopefully you have all had pretty successful hunting seasons so far. I had a pretty good November season myself, where I was able to harvest 3 deer, one being a huge mainframe 8. And I thought it'd be a good time to talk about what hunting strategies did I use during the rut, pre-rut, post-rut that are still going to be effective going into later season. And we'll also talk about some strategies that I used during pre-rut, rut, post-rut that no longer are going to be a focal point for my hunting tactics. So that's what I want to jump into. Hopefully you guys will find this information helpful and help give you guys a successful late November, December hunting season. So one of the main things that I always focus on that makes sense to do during the rut time frame, pre-rut, all the way into late season is weather. Weather, it has such a huge impact, and it had a huge impact on one of my hunts this November. Basically what happened during my hunt where I dropped that huge mainframe 8 and plus harvested another deer in the same night was we had a cold front coming in with about a 30-degree temperature swing. In addition to that, with this cold front, we had high winds for about 2 to 3 days. And we went in, hunt a piece of private property right after the wind started to die down, where max wind gusts were probably anywhere between 10 and 15 miles per hour. So pretty steady winds, somewhere around 5-6 miles an hour. The deer movement after this cold front came in and the winds died down was just incredible in the woods. It was one of my favorite days hunting in the woods this season, so, and probably for many seasons. So weather can have a huge impact, so make sure you guys pay attention to the weather. Make sure you look for those cold fronts that come in, those huge temperature drops, because deer are going to be moving. Yeah, they might not be moving chasing tail, looking for those does coming in estrus, but it brings us into our next category and next strategy, which is food. So when those temperatures drop, those deer need more calories. They need calories to survive the winter. So they'll be out, they'll be looking hard for food. It's comfortable for them to move. Not only that, they just came off of running for 2 to 3 weeks nonstop. So those deer need to replace a lot of calories to be able to survive the winter. Hunting food is going to be extremely important, so definitely make sure that's part of your tactic. So what type of food sources do I focus on? Well, uncut egg fields are extremely great if you have them nearby your hunting land. The closer you can get to an uncut egg field, the better off you're going to be. But at this time of the year, there's a lot less of them. Most people have all their crops harvested. So then you're resorting to cut egg fields, which is also can be good. I like to focus on corn that was cut. I tend to see more deer in cornfields than anywhere else. Bean fields seem to be picked over a little bit more, and the beans don't seem to last as long going in after they've been cut. Corn's a high-calorie food. If you are going to focus on cut fields, I would be focusing on cornfield. And then probably one of your best options, if you have it, a food plot. So if you have the capabilities of having your own food plot or putting a food plot on the land that you hunt, that is exactly where I'd focus my efforts, is on that food plot, especially if it's been a pretty unpressured and maintained food plot. When I shot that huge mainframe 8, that's one of the factors that I used. So I was sitting right on the edge of a cut cornfield, and it was also a funnel, because right off into the timber on that cut cornfield there was a huge slope going down, and it funneled all the deer right through this corner on this field. So I had deer coming in around me the whole entire hunt, some in the field, some in the woods, and it just made for an excellent hunt. So one of the things you could focus on. The other factor that you need to look into is hunting pressure. So I also chose this individual spot because no one's hunted it yet. There has been no hunting pressure in this spot. So make sure you're focusing on areas where there isn't a whole lot of hunting pressure. If there has been hunting pressure, you're going to have to consider that, right? We're in a lot of places in the thick of gun season, If you've had people pushing through the property, if you've had people hunting it heavily, the most likely you are not going to see mature bucks moving during daytime hours. Yeah, they might still come through there. If it's a great food source, they might come to it, but they probably ain't going to show up during daytime hours. So definitely focus on hunting pressure. Weather, food, hunting pressure, all key elements to hopefully make your hunt successful. Key things to still focus on, key on after the main rut, after all those does came in estrus, and the deer aren't quite running around anymore. So let's talk about some things that I don't focus on as much because they are not as effective after the rut. One of the main things, aggressively calling. So when I shot that mainframe 8, I aggressively called him. I hit him with a doe grunt, which is not that aggressive a move, but I immediately followed up with a snort wheeze. And that mainframe 8 came right in on a beeline. So rattling. The bucks are not that aggressive at this point. Not saying it's impossible to call them in. Potentially, if you do have a late doe coming in estrus and you know she's there and you got deer chasing them around, if you see those, maybe something aggressive might work. But in most cases, aggressive calling is probably going to keep bucks shying away because they're going to be more focused on replenishing calories and preparing for the winter. I would not aggressively call on them. Another thing, I no longer really hunt a whole lot of mornings. I do focus on nights. One of the main reasons why is because you can pattern the deer a little bit better. You can get in well ahead of time on that main path to a food source or on the food source, and you're able to set up, make sure you're prepared. You're not going to spook deer off that food source when you go in. So if you hunt mornings and you try to hunt a food source, they might already be in that food source. If you try to hunt bedding, a lot of times they might return to their bedding a lot earlier, later in the season. It's more of a higher risk type of hunt. If you do have a good pattern on a deer and you know the time they're passing through, maybe you do hunt the mornings. But I do shy away from the mornings. I do focus on the night hunts. Hunting small parcels of land, especially if they do not have a good food source on it, is something that I don't really focus on at all during late season. It's just a very low probability hunt. I get it if that's all you have to hunt, right? You might not have any other options unless you go and try to focus on some public land late season, which is also an option. But those small parcels of land, especially if they've been pressured, that don't have food, are very unlikely that you're going to get an opportunity at a big buck. You might get some does or different things in there potentially, but still the small parcel is less likely to hold them, especially if it's had pressure. If it does have food or it is a main pass-through area from bedding to food, it could be all right. But it's not one of those times where during the rut where everyone has a chance to shoot a big buck because they're running around like crazy everywhere. Those small parcels with no food, the percentage of seeing anything is going to drop drastically unless you have something drawing them in. Definitely something to think about. One reason why maybe a small parcel could be successful is if it has not been pressured at all and it's next to area where it's had high pressure from gun season and so forth. Maybe you do have some deer going in there and bedding. But if you don't fit any of the criteria with food or extremely unpressured, I would not be focusing on that small parcel. One thing I absolutely believe in, something that I do in front of a lot of my tree stands, is create mock scrapes with licking branches. Extremely impactful during pre-rut, rut, and post-rut phases. Those bucks will come in, they will hit those scrapes and licking branches. But after the rut, I don't really see any daytime activity on the scrapes and those licking branches. I do have a few bucks occasionally coming back in, and I'm able to spot check. I actually just had a picture of one of my shooter bucks come in last night, right around 2 a.m., which was nice to see. I know he survived gun season so far and bow season, but I don't see him coming in during daylight hours, and the fact that the deer came through at 2 a.m. means he's probably not even bedding close by. So I don't really focus on hunting over scrapes and licking branches unless it's at the corner of a good food source. So if it's near a good food source on a path to a food source, then sure, that might be a good spot to hunt. But other than that, that would not be a focal area. Hopefully you find all this information helpful and you can successfully apply it in the woods this late season. If you all do like this information, please like, share, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you don't miss any other good whitetail tactics that we will come out with in the future. We do greatly appreciate your support here at Hooked2Hunt. Hope you're able to apply this information. Good luck in the woods. Knock 'em dead.